The unibrow, the flowers in her hair, that defiant stare. I mean, you know the image, right? It's one of the most recognizable in the entire world. But behind that incredibly powerful facade is a story of just profound pain, radical politics, and a life that was turned into brutally honest art.
So let's go beyond the tote bags and the t-shirts and actually answer that question. In this explainer, we're going to dissect how Frida Kahlo took a life absolutely defined by suffering and transformed it into a revolutionary act of self-revelation that honestly changed art forever.
And you know, the best place to start is with her own words. This one quote, it's the key to everything. Her art wasn't about fantasy or dreams. It was her diary. It was a confession. And frankly, it was a survival tool. Okay, let's dive in. To really get her paintings, you have to understand this first. Frida was her own greatest creation. She built her identity with the same care and the same artistry that she put onto a canvas. This is the core concept we've got to wrap our heads around. Radical self-revelation. See, she didn't just paint pictures of what happened to her. She dissected her own existence for the entire world to see. She turned her pain into a visual language that was completely new, completely unheard of. And check this out. This was her very first act of creating herself. She was actually born in 1907, but she always claimed she was born in 1910. Why? Because 1910 was the year the Mexican Revolution kicked off. She was literally linking her own birth to the birth of a new, modern Mexico. This was such a powerful political statement. It was this full-throated embrace of what's called Mexicanidad. She was consciously rejecting European styles and standards, and instead proudly aligning herself with Mexico's indigenous revolutionary soul. This idea is absolutely central to her entire identity. But her identity wasn't just forged by politics. It was also forged by immense physical suffering. Her life was really defined by two catastrophic events that would shape not just her body, but the entire subject of her art. And it started early. When she was just 6 years old, polio left her with a withered right leg. That was her first real taste of chronic pain, of being different. But it was the event at age 18 that would become the central, defining disaster of her life. The injuries she sustained in that bus accident were just horrific. A steel handrail literally impaled her through her pelvis. Her spine was broken in 3 places, her legs shattered in 11, her pelvis was crushed. Doctors honestly didn't think she would survive. This wasn't just an injury, it was a complete demolition of her body.
And this is where the tragedy becomes creation. She was immobilized in a full-body cast for months on end. Her mother had this brilliant idea. She set up a special easel so Frida could paint in bed, and she placed a mirror above her. With nothing else to look at, Frida began to paint the only subject she had, herself. The artist we know was born directly from that trauma. And that leads us right to her art. From that point on, everything that happened to her, every single physical pain, every emotional heartbreak, was processed and documented on canvas. Her art is, quite literally, a visual autobiography. And this is exactly why she famously rejected being called a surrealist. You know, the surrealists, they painted the subconscious, the world of dreams. But Frida always insisted, no, I'm a realist. She wasn't painting dreams, she was painting her unfiltered and often brutal reality. Take this, for example. After a traumatic miscarriage in Detroit, she painted Henry Ford Hospital. I mean, it is a shockingly honest depiction of female pain. You see her, bleeding on a hospital bed, connected by these umbilical cords to symbols of her loss. Nothing like it had ever been painted before. It was revolutionary. And the same thing goes for her emotional pain. When she divorced her husband, the famous muralist Diego Rivera, she painted The Two Fridas. Here, she's literally dissecting her own heart on the canvas, showing the loved Frida whose heart is whole, right next to the unloved, abandoned Frida whose heart is exposed and bleeding out. It's like emotional surgery. And for her physical suffering, well, there is no more direct statement than the broken column. She was forced to wear a steel corset to support her spine, so she painted her body literally torn open, her spine replaced by a crumbling, shattered column. But look at her face. She's weeping, but her gaze is locked on you. It's direct and defiant. She's broken, but she is not defeated. Frida once said there were 2 great accidents in her life. We've just talked about the bus crash. That was the first. The second was Diego Rivera. She actually framed her passionate, politically charged, but incredibly toxic marriage as another life-altering catastrophe. His constant affairs caused her immense pain, the kind of emotional agony you see so clearly in the two Fridas. So, just like her physical suffering, this constant heartbreak became another raw, essential material for her art.
And all this pain, both physical and emotional, wasn't just kept on her canvases. She managed it, she transformed it, through her very appearance. Her iconic look was just a work of absolute genius. On a practical level, those long Tijuana skirts hid her withered leg and her medical corsets. Politically, they were a bold statement of Mexicanidad. And artistically, well, she turned her own body into a living canvas.
But here's the crazy part. For all her brilliance, she died in relative obscurity. So how on earth did she become the global icon we know today? Well, her fame is a story that happened almost entirely after she was gone.
When she died in 1954, she was basically a footnote in her husband's story, Diego Rivera's wife. But then, in the 70s and 80s, two movements rediscovered her: feminist art historians who were searching for powerful female voices, and the Chicano movement, who saw her as a powerful symbol of Mexican pride. And from there, it just exploded into the Frida mania we see everywhere today. Now, it's really crucial to see that this fame is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's fantastic. Her work became accessible to millions. But on the other hand, it often sanitized her image. The Frida you see on a coffee mug is usually stripped of her raw pain, her visible disability, and her lifelong devout communism, all of which were absolutely essential to who she actually was. So, that brings us to the big question, right? Why does she remain so profoundly relevant? Why are we still studying her? And, let's be honest, obsessing over her today? I think her legacy really boils down to three huge things. First, she pioneered what we call confessional art. She made it okay to make your own trauma the subject, giving generations of artists the green light to do the same. Second, she completely redefined beauty and challenged the male gaze with that direct confrontational stare. And third, she was an icon of intersectional identity before that term even existed, living right at the complex crossroads of gender, culture, disability, and politics. Ultimately, the story of Frida Kahlo leaves us with this powerful and absolutely timeless message. In an age where we're all obsessed with authenticity, she remains the original, the woman who proved that it is possible to take the broken pieces of your own life and build something extraordinary, beautiful, and forever defiant.